Hello? Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another book stream. I know that I have not been as consistent as usual, but been moving, had some visitors, life kind of happened. So we are here now, though, on chapter 25. And in the last chapter, Merlin and Halia are still trying to get to the oracle. And they thought they saw like a vision of Aramon, and they jumped off the cliff. Aramon is Halia's deceased brother. And they thought they saw him and like jumped off a cliff in blind faith. And now I think they found the cave of the oracle, and there sounds like pained, tormented voices coming from this cave. So that's where we're at. Let's read chapter 25, called One Voice Out of Many. Together, we planted our hooves upon the ice-crusted rocks at the lip of the cave. From deep within, voices sighed and called, wailed and pleaded. Though I could not make out any words, the voices' tone of anguish and longing could not be mistaken. Holly and I traded anxious looks. Was this, in fact, the passage to the Wheel of Way, or some sort of trap laid by the mountain spirits? And was there any way to find out, except by entering? I could see in Halia's eyes that she had reached the same conclusion as I. In unison, we strode forward into the cave. Heeding our silent command, our bodies melted into different forms. Where 2 deer had stood only an instant before, an unshod young woman and a booted young man stood now. My own sigh joined with those of the voices, for I suddenly too felt vertical, too stiff, too much like wood and not enough like wind. Wordlessly, we moved deeper into the cave, ducking under a row of icicles that hung like bars across the entrance. The cave did not descend, but rather plunged straight into the face of the cliffs. The air felt thick and humid, as if we were walking inside a cloud, a smoky, sulphurous cloud. At the same time, it felt warmer than I would have expected, reminding us that the lava had formed these crags so long ago still coursed beneath the surface. As we continued, plunging deeper into the mountain, the wavering light grew stronger, filtering toward us from somewhere ahead. What, I wondered, was its source? No doubt we'd learn before long. Thousands upon thousands of black crystals coated the floor, walls, and ceiling. Even through my boots, they poked and jabbed at my feet. I marveled at Halia's ability to walk over them with such ease. She strode as gracefully as a doe crossing a bed of moss, her toes curling gently over the facets. With every step we took, the black crystals glowed more brightly. Their facets glinted like so many eyes, staring at us and winking at one another as we moved past. Even without my own magic, I could sense that these crystals possessed some strange magic of their own. Always I have loved caves, crystal caves especially. Their quiet depths, their mysterious shadows, their gleaming facets. As we moved deeper, the black crystals created ever more intricate patterns. Circles, waves, spirals, as well as some more random designs. While most were black, a few gleamed yellow, pink, and purple. Above our heads draped a row of stalactites, lavender in color, and so ancient in years, they hung like the whiskers of distant time itself. I paused, looking closer, and jumped. There, clinging to the base of one of the stalactites, was a dark, bony creature. Though I knew in an instant it was just a bat, it resembled too much another kind of creature, one I never wanted to meet again. As the light within the cavern grew stronger, so did the voices, and their torment swelled at the same time. Whether moaning, pleading, or cajoling, they shared a common edge of agony. Yet I couldn't make out any of their words, only their emotions. If indeed they were the many voices of the Wheel of Way, my stomach churned at the prospect of choosing one, and only one, out of all of them. The silver light flicked on Halia's face. Can you understand them? I shook my head. Not at all. Only the pain. A brittle crystal snapped under my heel. How will I know which to choose? She slowed, touching a curved arm of crystals protruding from the wall. Do you remember what Aramon said to you just before he left us? Yes, I answered grimly. Find the Galator. No, after that. He said, you have more power than you know. Despondently, I dragged my boot across the bulge of a glinting crystal. He meant his own gift to me, the deer's power. She scowled at me. He meant more than that, Merlin. You do have, well, a certain kind of magic and power. Yes, even now. I looked at her skeptically. What kind? For several seconds, she considered me. I'm not sure what to call it, but whatever its name, it was enough to inspire his gift. Enough to make you want to try to help the newborn dragon, even if you couldn't possibly save her. And it just might be enough to help you know what to do at the oracle. Slowly, I exhaled. I want to believe you, I really do. Pace by pace, we marched farther into the cave. Gradually, the passage bent to the left, then grew wider, as well as taller. As we rounded the bend, the ceiling abruptly vaulted high above our heads. Glittering walls of stone arched to meet it. The light in this immense chamber shone intensely bright, reflecting on the crystals. Still, I couldn't find the source. All at once I understood. The crystals themselves. They were sparkling, glowing with a silvery light of their own. Directly opposite of us, covering almost the entire wall, hung a great glistening wheel. Slowly, very slowly, it spun, its continually groaning joining the chorus of voices that now clamored in our ears. While the voices themselves were still incomprehensible, they clearly came from somewhere near. Just where, I couldn't tell. Like frogs calling from a hidden pond at night, the voices swam around us, swelling and fading, without ever revealing their source. We stood there, amazed, watching the wheel turning endlessly on its axis. It appeared to be fashioned from some sort of wood, though its color looked darker than any wood I had ever seen. Each of its 5 broad spokes, as well as the rim, showed numberless facets, as if whatever hand had fashioned them had carved the surrounding crystals as well. 5 spokes inside a circle, just like the star inside a circle that had been carved into my staff, my lost staff. How clearly I remembered that night, long ago, when Gwiri of the golden hair had descended from the starry sky to meet me on a wind-swept ridge. The symbol, she said, would remind me that all things, somehow, are connected, that all words, all songs, are part of what she called the great and glorious Song of the Stars. I shook my head. The shape now reminded me of all that I had lost, my staff, my powers, my essence. At that instant, I noticed 3 or 4 dark patches on the floor of the chamber. No crystals glowed, no light radiated at those spots. Curious, I moved closer to the nearest one. Suddenly, my blood turned to ice. A mass of bones, splintered and charred by some potent force. From their size and shape, I could tell that they were all that remained of a man or a woman, someone who had, no doubt, chosen to listen to the wrong voice. As I stooped to pick up the fragment of the skull, Halia seized my arm. "The spokes!" she cried above the reverberating voices. "They're changing!" I gasped, dropping the skull. The facets in the middle of each of the 5 spokes were indeed changing. Gradually, they started to stretch, to lengthen and broaden, drawing themselves together in strange clusters. Some pushed outward into bulbous lumps, while others curled inward to form slashes or pits. The midsections of the spokes started to bulge as the clusters coalesced and rearranged themselves, burgeoning into larger shapes, shapes with patterns, shapes with faces. Polly and I traded glances, for in the middle of each spoke, a face, as distorted as a knotty wood, had appeared. While the wheel continued spinning, the faces grew more defined. One by one, They opened their dull yellow eyes, stretched their lips, and turned their gazes on us. As their mouths opened for the first time, each assumed one of the disembodied voices in the chamber. At the same time, the voices adopted the language of Finkyra. "Free me," moaned a wide, squarish face that had just risen to the top of the wheel. "Free me, and truth shall be yours." As the wheel slowly turned, the face contorted, growing even wider than before. It released a deep, prolonged groan. "Free me. Have you no mercy at all? Free me." "Ignore that. Such a shame, voice," snapped a second writhing face on the lower spoke. "He will lead you. What a pity, astray. The true voice, such a disgrace, is not his, but mine. Free me, please. Free me. Oh, do be, what a crime. Silent." The sharp nose of a third face jabbed at us. From the pinched mouth came a wrathful hiss. "Don't listen to those voices. Listen to me, so you may survive." Halia started to whisper something to me when a fourth voice cut her off. "Woe to you who seeks to live. Woe to me who yearns to give." From a lopsided face with deep-set eyes, the anguished voice wailed. "Choose the right, and it is I. Choose the wrong, and you shall die." "Such nonsense! Free me, I beg of you. Stop, please," squealed a fifth voice, sounding like a dog with a broken leg. "I am the only voice of truth. You must believe me." Full of uncertainty, I took a step closer to the revolving wheel. My gaze roamed around the crystalline chamber, from the turning faces, to the worried eyes of Halia, to the piles of bones at my feet. Then, drawing a slow breath, I addressed all 5 faces at once. "I have come here," I declared, "to find the truth. Please choose me. Choose me, free me." "Silence. You must choose me or you will die. One of 5 shall give you life, all the rest give you only strife. You must, such a dilemma, choose me." As the voices clamored, the silver light from the crystals grew steadily brighter. Raising my voice above the cacophony, I addressed the wheel again. "Tell me, each of you, why I should choose you." For a few seconds, the faces on the spokes fell silent. Only the groaning of the turning wheel echoed in the chamber. Yet the light from the crystals continued to brighten until the walls were almost too dazzling to bear. I sensed that I must make my choice soon, or the crystal's swelling power would somehow explode, like a bolt of lightning, reducing me to another pile of bones. I waved to Halia to retreat into the passage where she might be safer, yet she stood firmly in place, squinting from the light. "Free me!" cried one voice, shattering the lull. "Free me, and I shall love you always, for I and I alone am the truth of the heart." "Select me," promised another. "I can give you so many things more. All the wealth you seek, all the power you deserve. For I am the strongest truth of all. Yes, the truth of the hand." "Choose me! What joy! What joy!" The voice burst into laughter, then suddenly started wailing wretchedly. "I am such sorrow, such sorrow! The truth of the mind. All that I know, whether merry or grim, soothing or painful, can be yours, all yours." "Please," begged the next voice, "I can shower you with wonder, with mystery, for I shall always be the truth of the unknown." The last voice, merely a whisper, offered only this: "Truth of the spirit am I, wisdom and peace I supply." By now, the light had grown so bright that I could no longer even look at the spinning faces, let alone the crystalline walls. The crystals themselves had begun to buzz, as if they could barely contain their swelling power. In seconds, the entire chamber had started vibrating. I knew my time was almost gone. Concentrating, I forced myself to think. The voices spoke for different kinds of truth, each one important, each one precious. like the separate parts of the story circle that Halia, Araman, and I had created together on the day we met. Truth of the heart, the mind, the hand, the spirit, the unknown. How could I possibly pick only one? What was the truth of the spirit without the truth of the heart, and the heart without the mind? My thoughts raced, even as the voices, the walls, the wheel all roared at me. The floor shook beneath my feet. What had Cairpree told me? One and only one is the complete voice of the truth. But which one? Heart, hand, unknown, mind, spirit. Which to choose? The walls bent and swayed. I could barely keep my balance. The crystals burned like stars. Stars. The phrase again flowed through my memory. The great and glorious song of the stars. All words, Guiri had said, played some part in the song. All words, all voices. Could that be the answer? Perhaps the voice of truth was not one of the voices I was hearing after all. Perhaps it was another voice entirely. The only voice that could be called the complete voice of truth. All the voices, I cried. I raised my hand to the revolving wheel, shouting at the top of my lungs. All the voices are true. Instantaneously, the walls and floor stopped shaking. The light from the crystals dimmed. The buzzing ceased. The wheel of Way, however, started spinning faster than ever before. Soon it became a blur, then a shadow. At the same time, the clamoring voices became less distinct. The faster they spun, the more they melted together. When at last the wheel was nearly invisible, the voices had merged into a single resonant tone. Then the oracle spoke, in one unified voice. Ask what you will. Halia stepped to my side. You did it, Merlin, but remember now, you have only one question. I pushed some straggly hairs off my brow. I know. But which one to ask? I had come here originally to find the Galator, and yet, with all my heart, I wanted to find my own powers again. They might give me at least a chance against Valdirg. Perhaps I wouldn't even need the magical pendant after all. I chewed my lip. Tuatha, so long ago, had carried both his own powers and the Galator when he faced the dragon. The problem was, which one did he need most? Or, perhaps, which one did Finkyra need most? Ask now. Working my tongue inside my mouth, I turned back to the spinning wheel of Way. This choice tormented me even more than the first. How could I be victorious without the pendant? And yet, how could I be myself without my powers? Ask now. Great wheel, I began, my throat suddenly dry. I seek the powers of the Galator. Where can I find them? Those powers are very near. The wheel spun all the faster. You can find them in something as fast as lightning shot out of the passageway behind us and struck the axis of the wheel. Scarlet light exploded in the cavern, or perhaps just in my head. As the axis splintered, an ear-splitting crack rocked the chamber, fading into a distant rumble that seemed to emanate from far beneath us. The voices halted, as did the wheel itself. The 5 faces on the spokes froze in lifeless stares. Dumbfounded, Halia and I gazed at the black shape that had lodged like an arrow in the middle of the axis. Acrylix. Bum bum bum! Okay. Well, that was the end of chapter 25, so I hope you join me probably tomorrow for chapter 26. I don't think life is going to get in the way now, so we should be able to get back on a more consistent schedule. But have a wonderful night, and thank you for joining me. Bye!